Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, the show where each week we watch the very first televised episode of a different sitcom and then rate it on that episode alone, ignoring any knowledge we have of any future episodes. This week we'll be talking about The Good Place. The Good Place ran 50 episodes over 4 seasons on NBC. We're going to be talking about just the first episode today, which was called Pilot. Pilot aired September 19th, 2016. So, I'm Jay Gags. With me, as always, the guys, Gordo, Ferg, Nick, and Joe. What's going on, guys?
Hey-o.
Bull
Hello.
shirt.
Cheaty Anaconda.
Anagonia.
Anaconda.
To start off, who has seen The Good Place up until now? Is anyone seeing it for the first time?
I've seen it in full.
Gordo for the first time?
Yes.
Surprise!
You
Gordo
watch
usually-
television?
Like, what do you do?
Oh,
You
not
just
really.
Come home and stare at the wall.
When
Pretty
you agreed
much,
to do this show, what was the mindset? Like, this would be a fun way to experience television?
I actually thought this was going to be a wrestling podcast at first.
I think that's what we thought it would be at first. But
and then I already said yes. So I enjoy watching these for the first time. There's a lot of shows I haven't seen. So
I'm
No,
almost jealous.
It's a good thing because that's like a take for each week is someone with new eyes for every episode.
with the premise of the show, when we are watching shows that we have seen before, and to peel back the curtain on other people, it's very difficult to talk about just that episode, your honest feelings, and forget anything you know about the future. Because sometimes we're watching shows that we love and have seen many, many times, and you have to be very honest to what you saw. And that's not always the easiest thing to do.
This show is a great example of that. This is a real hard show to try to take your brain out of.
Yeah, like legitimately. And so to get into it a little bit, The Good Place was created by Michael Sher, who got his feet wet, is most known actually from his start with The Office, where he played Mose and was an executive producer. Now, to talk about The Office for a second, that's a show we obviously would like to do. I've watched that show so many times. It is leaps and bounds my favorite show. I don't know how I'm going to be able to talk about that first episode and just ignore everything else I know. We're going to have to do it one day, so, we'll get to it.
Yeah, if nothing else, you got to give it to this show that Mose is just the funniest character on TV in the past 20 years. So good for you, Michael Shore, for all you've done for us.
So let's start right at the opening. So the opening was just a green screen. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Let me go back. That was the title screen. The actual open of the show before the title was it just starts with you see a girl's eyes open up, and it kind of looked like she was in therapy. That was like my initial vibe, was some girl is in therapy, and she sees on the wall written, "Welcome, everything is fine." And then I wondered, is she in therapy or is this a cult? Any thoughts? Gordo, I guess I'm going to target you first because I know you haven't seen it. So like when you saw that, did your brain go in any particular direction as to what you're about to witness?
No. It kind of looked like an office-y setting. So that's kind of where I thought maybe she had taken a nap in her office.
Yeah.
Or something of that kind of nature. But that's what I thought at first.
I remember my impression of this when I first saw the episode because they advertised this show so you know what the premise is off the bat. So I figured that that's where the show was going to start, was in that situation.
Right. You have the benefit of going in that way.
I don't even think I knew what the show was about.
That
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I really didn't know, so I was like, oh, what's The Good Place? And then I watched this
I mean,
episode.
I got the vibe right away that she was like dead, or just because of the color palette of everything's white, everything's lack of sound. You notice the complete lack of sound other than like them speaking
Yep.
instantly, and it's like it's hard to explain how you notice something not being there, but like there's just no sound whatsoever. Everything's white. It's like,
Yeah, I don't want to say I would have picked up on that right. Like I said, it definitely felt like therapy, like she was about to walk into a therapist's office. So from that point in what looked like this therapy session, enters Ted Danson, who plays Michael in the show, and asks her to step into the office. So
What a
I don't know, at
G.
this point to me, yeah, it still feels like therapy, but I'm also like, hey, it's Ted Danson.
Yeah.
Yeah, immediately you're super stoked to see Ted Danson.
he's what drew me to the show because I hadn't heard of it until like the first time I watched it. I saw Ted Danson and I kept it on. Like,
Before we get too into Ted Danson, because I feel like she's a on-the-line girl, how do you guys feel about Kristen Bell? Because I love her.
Yeah, I'm pro.
I like
I
it.
like her a
I'm a
lot.
fan. Like outside of the show in general, just from what I've seen of her in interviews and stuff, she just seems like a really cool person.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to that too, when I first
unless
watched,
she's Sarah Marshall, then she's a bitch.
See, I've never seen that movie. I didn't know who she was when I first saw this. I only
really?
knew who Ted Danson was. And coming back later on, Chidi is in Midsummer, and you see people in other stuff. But I had no idea who anybody but Ted Danson was when I first saw
we
this.
can get into Ted Danson more, but I'm sure over time we're gonna cover a plethora of Ted Danson shows.
She was on that show that made her famous. What's it called? Was it Veronica Mars?
Oh yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
That's true. Yeah, that's like her
right.
claim to fame.
Oh, I've
Yeah.
never seen that either.
Which I've never seen.
Me,
yeah.
me neither.
I've heard
love
it's
the show.
really
I know
good.
they tried to bring it back recently, and I think it failed.
But I do love Ted Danson's Becker.
Yeah. What
No.
I
Yeah.
what,
Sorry.
No,
No, I love Becker.
Yeah,
Becker's
Becker was
great.
great.
I don't think you could put Ted Danson in something that I would not enjoy. Like he's just
Yeah, he's immediate.
Gold.
Like he's catnip. You're just fine. You want to watch it.
All right, so we'll get more into Ted Danson in a minute, but to go back, what I liked is at this point, Eleanor walks into Michael's office. That's the girl's name. I know it hasn't been addressed yet, but for sake of argument, we'll talk about it. It's Eleanor. She sits down, and the first thing she does is just says, like, where am I? Like, what's going on? And that's great because we're being introduced to this world at the same time as her, and they're just going to explain the premise of the show right away. And I think that's a pretty good approach.
Yeah, great plot device.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, like when you're the character, right? So you're in there with them. You're experiencing it at the same time frame they are.
I gotta say that's like my least favorite thing about TV shows is when they drag their feet in the beginning. It's like you only have so much time to work with a series like that, and if you drag it out and trying to explain to me this simple concept for an entire episode, I'm gonna be kind of pissed off.
Yeah.
So
It's like
I
20
love,
minutes
yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, they get
Like-
directly into it, and I love that.
Like I mentioned The Office earlier, like The Office you just start in the middle of a workday and you just kind of figure out what's happening. So like, different things work for different shows, but I think here, where especially what we find out about the show, this is kind of a good way to just bring you in. Okay, this is what's going on. Let's accept that and move forward. And I think it really worked.
I felt like it was kind of like if Ted Danson was, so if this show were to have a narrator, like that's
he's
what the
guiding you
narrator,
through the show.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they would be saying is like, oh, this is Eleanor. She was killed, when she did this and stuff like that. Instead, they
Right.
injected it into the actors, which I like.
And so to go back for what you just said, this is where we find out Eleanor's dead. This is the afterlife. What we know of the afterlife wasn't totally correct, like the conventional heaven and hell.
I mean, we got 5% of it.
Yeah,
right.
everybody except for the stoner guy.
Except
Doug.
for Doug Forsett.
Doug
We find
Stoner.
out that we are this is the afterlife, and it's the good place and the bad place. It's not heaven and hell, which they specifically say isn't heaven and hell, but the good place and the bad place pretty much sounds like heaven and hell, and the way they are presented to us also come off that way anyways. So what I thought was weird was she took it really well. He's like, you're dead, and she's like, okay, cool. And the only thing that like clicked with me is maybe she took it well because she knew that there's an afterlife, right? If you find out you're going to die, the scariest part is not knowing if there's going to be more.
And also, if well-coiffed Ted Danson in a suit tells you you're in the afterlife,
That's
it's
my
probably a
good
little more
place.
calming.
But
Right?
she's
Yeah.
walking right into this. She already has that comfort now, right? She opened her eyes. She's speaking to someone. She's not in pain or anything. So he's like, you're dead. This is the afterlife. And she's like, oh, there's an afterlife. Cool. All right.
See,
so
I didn't take it as that. I took it as she was skeptical. Like maybe
I don't know.
she
I
didn't
don't think
believe
she ever
was
really
dead.
doubted it. She didn't have a lot of extra questions. She was just kind of like,
You
All right,
also,
I'm dead.
as the episode goes on, you realize that her life kind of sucked. So
Right,
maybe she
well-
was like, "Fuck it, who cares?" Like that's
well,
just kind of her
that's
outlook.
like exactly what happens next is she asks Michael, well, how did I die? And he lets her know, well, typically if it's like a more embarrassing way to die, we erase the memory from you. So, it's not something that's stuck with you in the afterlife. But since she asked, she was leaving a grocery store and she dropped a bottle of Lonely Girl margarita mix for one. And when she went to pick it up, got hit by a series of runaway shopping carts, which didn't kill her, but threw her into a street where she got hit by a truck that was a billboard for an ED pill called Engorgulite. And the first EMT that walked on the scene was her ex-boyfriend. And so a terrible, terrible, embarrassing way to die. And what I loved was Ted Danson's delivery and matter-of-factness was golden. He just very much just was like reading it like, because he's seen everything, right? He's encountered millions of people's deaths at this point, right? So there's probably nothing that could shock him. So he's just reading it very matter of fact, and I just love the way that came off.
Yeah, you have to imagine if you're the architect of the afterlife, you've seen every death ever. So this terrible Arizona, Florida death of margaritas and shopping carts doesn't seem that bad.
I mean, he's
The
probably seen 1,000 people just die pooping. Like,
just being able to say like for a pill called Engorgolite, and I'm like,
Yeah.
If that's Engorgia Light, does that mean that's the lighter version? Is there an Engorgia Full? Is this like
Maybe.
a beer scenario?
That's-
What is
yeah,
the
that's
difference
if
here?
you're,
Is it
like,
calories?
really-
Is it...
no,
Yeah,
that's
I
if you're
wanna
like
know.
trying to go for a while.
This
one
episode's
you have to ask
sponsored
your
by
doctor
Blue
about.
Chew.
Yeah.
I was going to say, she took it very well, too, for somebody that died.
Again, I just think it's a matter of she now has the comfort of knowing there's an afterlife. I think that's the biggest fear, is just not knowing that there is one.
Well, it's easy to take it well when it comes from Engorgia Light.
And that's when, and to go back to, like, we find out there's no heaven and hell, conventionally, but there's a good place and the bad place, and she's in the good place. And additionally, like, and this was like a really nice, safe approach, I thought, for a show, was they said every religion was 5% right. So we're not going to, they're not excluding any religion, right? They're saying no matter what your belief was, what you do believe, you guys kind of have it right. This is an alternate thing that, which for the show I just thought was a really wise approach because you're not excluding anyone.
Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
be intentionally like ambiguous in that
So,
sense
like,
to really
Everybody
get there.
was 5%. Everyone was 5%.
You're still selling commercials. You can't be like, except for Judaism or
Yeah.
except for Christianity. You got to really play, toe
It's
the
like
line
they
a little bit.
say, don't talk about religion or politics, and they found a way around the religion part. I
Yeah,
think.
it's fine.
Everyone's right.
Very
And
well.
wrong.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
well done.
Everyone was 5% except Doug Forsett from Calgary in the 70s, who guessed a whopping 92% when he was super high.
I love
good
that
average.
I love that he's a big fan of him too. He's like,
Yeah.
I got that picture. That's
Yeah,
hard to
and
come by. Like,
He shows the picture and he's like, I'm really proud of that.
Because it's funny when when he was telling that story, I envisioned Ted Danson like watching him tell that story while he was still alive and being like, "Oh my god, are you guys seeing this? Like, he got it. Like, he got it."
Like everyone around the water cooler watching this stoner
Yeah.
with a Rush record on, talking
It's
about
like they're
stuff
watching a
and being
sporting
spot
event.
on.
They're all rooting him on. They're like, Doug, 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 Doug. So there, I mean, and I falsely mentioned earlier. So now we get into the actual intro screen, right? After we find out that she is in the good place, and now it cuts just a green screen, like a kind of a lime green screen with just the name of the show, with some like very kind of calming music that goes along with it for like 5 seconds. Any thought of just doing that shortened intro? We've seen kind of a mix over the different episodes we've done.
I feel like that's a very a learned thing from Michael Sher specifically, because he did The Office, Parks and Rec, which all have, as far as intros go, pretty considerably long intros.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine as well.
Yeah, right. And I feel like he was probably always arguing, oh, we need to cut a minute from this scene, or we need to cut 40 seconds from this scene. And then the intro is like almost a minute long on these things. So he was like, you know what? I'm going to put everything I can into this show and have a 1 second intro. Because
Well, look at all those
yeah.
fan episodes of The Office they're putting up now, right? Where they cut in all the deleted scenes and bonus features.
Right.
Even if you got 40 seconds of some of those jokes into an original episode, I think it would have been better than seeing the same theme song over and over again.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
You know what vibe I got seeing it was it kind of looked like an ad for an antidepressant. That was like the
Yeah.
vibe I got seeing.
Yeah, it's kind of the music too that helps that.
maybe an ED pill.
Maybe that was it. Maybe that's the commercial for Engorgolite. So from that, we get to the scene where Michael takes Eleanor on like a little walk around to see what everything looks like. And we find out there's multiple neighborhoods, each containing specifically 322 people that are all hand selected to be in a specific neighborhood catered to them. So everything has perfect balance. Every last blade of grass has been specifically placed. Everything's perfect.
323 seems like a good amount. I don't know how they came across that in the writing, but that seems like that's not too many, it's not too little.
If you're analyzing it like we are, yeah, when you think about it, 322 people, that's a good amount of people.
It's
That's
enough
like
to feel neighborhoody,
enough.
but not to feel
Yeah.
like you're seeing just the same 5 people every day.
Yeah,
It's kind
there's
of
a nice
Exactly.
mix.
Now, what about the
Um,
frozen yogurt thing? Because they come across that everywhere has frozen yogurt. I've never eaten frozen yogurt before. Is it good enough that you'd want it everywhere?
Is that a dietary restriction or you just never had interest in it?
I just never had it. I mean, I used to eat ice cream, but
The thing about frozen yogurt is not the frozen yogurt. So the frozen yogurt is good enough. It's not a far leap from ice cream, but you can tell it's not ice cream. But all these froyo places either allow you to put the guy or have the guy who's doing it put whatever the fuck you want on it. So you can go and put like crushed up candy bars or peanuts or anything, and then that's basically what you're eating, and that's
So it's a
why
numbers
I froze.
game. How many
I think-
pieces of Crunch Bar can I put in there?
Right, and it's usually a bowl. Like it's not. You don't see frozen yogurt in cones because they
Yeah, I've never
want you
seen
to
a
just
cone.
like they want you to shovel all this other stuff into you because I think that's why it's popular personally.
Yeah,
Anyways.
it's like the equivalence of going to like those candy stores when you're on vacation, where you get to fill your own bag up and then they weigh it.
Yep.
and
See, that's
stuff
not how
like
I
that.
always
Like,
took that. Well, how I took the popularity of frozen yogurt is you have that mix, but people are convinced they're eating something healthier than they are.
right.
So to
Yeah.
people, like, when they're getting frozen yogurt and they're putting Butterfingers and gummy bears on it, they're still like, but it's frozen yogurt, so it's like a healthy treat. Like, I'm just splurging a little bit by putting this Crunch Bar on it. So it's this like mental game that people play with themselves.
It's also funny too because especially when you consider it that way, that you think it's a healthier alternative to ice cream, where these people are already dead and could be eating ice cream, so
Right.
they still chose frozen yogurt. It's funny.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. If you could have any indulgence in the world,
I think it's just the time, though. If you remember 2016, it was or 17, it was a huge boom in that kind of thing.
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's already like a dead trend because you really don't even see it now anymore.
They're still around, but
Like,
there was a point where
really
we were
less.
seeing like frozen yogurt chains pop up. Like they weren't so
Yeah.
much one-off spots. Like all these chain places were opening in every mall and every strip mall. There was like a frozen yogurt place. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, like around here they would close and a new one would open up and it would close, but it would be the same building, would just be
Yep.
a different froyo place.
But you know what I actually liked about that scene too is that was like the first thing that
Froyo.
Eleanor noticed was the fact that it was frozen yogurt everywhere. But what I really liked was Michael just being like, yeah, people like frozen yogurt. I don't really know what to tell you. And that was like the first crack in him being like calm, showing no like emotion towards anything, can talk about, you know, margarita mix for one and how you died and everything's very, hey, how's it going? It's all very flat. But that was the first time he's like, I don't know why people like frozen yogurt. That was the first time he just kind of like dropped the shtick and was just like, yeah, I know it's weird.
Yeah, I do like that you see a little bit of like he's not a real person, right? Because nobody's a real person in this, but has a personality that's not all shiny.
That was,
a little
yeah,
bit.
the first crack in the armor was like right there.
I was gonna say the residents are real people, but we don't know as of yet if Michael is a real person or was a real person or if he's just one
We
of
don't
the,
know. Yeah, we
Right.
don't know any of Michael's backstory. I mean, like, I kind of got the vibe that the reason his name is Michael is maybe like an archangel Michael
Yeah.
thing, even though they're straying away from specific religion. But there's obviously a lot of parallels towards like conventional Catholicism in this Good Place, Bad Place.
Probably just a John Travolta reference.
Yes, yes, great movie. If we ever spin off and do movies, Michael will be at the top of the list.
Episode 1.
No, it won't.
Right. Phenomenon will be one, then Michael, then Boy in the Plastic Bubble, Grease, et cetera, et cetera.
Broken Arrow.
Face Off.
Yeah.
Wild Hogs. If
We're
everyone's
just
gonna say
playing around
John
the horn
Travolta
now.
movies.
saying
Yeah, we
different
mentioned
bad-
every, except for like my favorite movie of all time, Pulp
I
Fiction.
killed my kid because I'm a Scientologist.
Ooh.
You didn't see that one?
That got dark. Real fast.
Oh, his
He's
son
not gonna
named
come
Jet?
up, yeah.
You mean his son named Jet?
Stop.
Nope.
Nope.
So there. All right. So now one of my favorite actors of all time is never going to do this show.
He wasn't gonna
So-
do it anyway.
Unless Fred Durst was going to direct an episode, he wasn't going to be on it anyway.
So all right. So let's cut to
jeez.
there's now a video presentation that she has to sit down for. It's kind of like in the town hall, well, town center, right? So it's like there's a nice little kind of open area, and everyone sits and they watch this presentation that's on like a large video screen. And it was like pretty much everything being explained about like where you're at and how you got there. And it was like Michael was the narrator of this video, but it was very much like a first day at work type video. Was this like a good way for you guys to better understand what was happening? Or
I didn't like it because I think that, I mean, have anybody ever had to deal with one of those first day at work videos or
Yeah,
the
the
we're going to meet the whole
orientations.
team?
Yep.
That is hell. That is not the good place. And the idea that you'd have to, that's how you deal with it, that you wouldn't have someone just walk up and be like, yo, here's a
Wink,
score,
wink.
here's a piece of paper. This is how you're going to go through it. Enjoy. The fact that
I-
to sit down in a group and deal with this whole presentation, it does seem very opposite of good place. to
Also,
me.
I mean, you have to consider that you're not starting a new job, though. This is life after death. So I imagine your need for information is probably pretty high. So if they're going to sit down and show me a 2-minute video explaining as much as they can, then I'm probably going to want to watch it.
Yeah,
I mean, you have all eternity to catch up. So as long as you can sit down through this, it's not the worst thing.
I'll take a mailer.
But you know what, though? The one thing about this video that I thought was super important to the episode is they're going over the point total, because that's how you get into the good place or the bad place, is every single thing you've ever done in your life. picking up a penny off the ground, press the button before you cross the street. All that stuff has been tallied up. There are points, positive and negative, for every single action you do. And they make it very clear that it's very, very difficult to get into the good place. Which, to me, watching it, the first thing I thought of is you're seeing that and you go, well, how did Eleanor get in? If she's like drinking Lonely Girl margarita mix and they're saying only the cream of the crop people get in, like that was kind of the first crack. And I know like as the episode goes on, we find out a little bit more, but that did catch my attention really early.
Gordon, you've never seen the show before. What do you take of that point with Eleanor?
With Eleanor, it was weird because I didn't really put that much stock into the margarita mix because everybody drinks. So it wasn't like she was driving drunk or,
That's a good point, yeah.
You know, she didn't do anything. So drinking is a normal thing, like the lonely girl margarita. It was a normal thing. So the telling thing about it was that when they were saying like, pick up this or do this, look at how much the numbers were going up and down. They were only like how many decimal places.
Yeah, very minuscule amounts.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So what's drinking gonna do? What's drinking like Lonely Girl Margarita gonna do?
Yeah,
drinking...
at this point too, there's nothing to say she's a bad person. It's just she's a sad person. Like
she was just kind of a loner.
Good people can drink margaritas.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, because of that point score, I didn't think that the drinking the margarita that didn't set anything off. I was more trying to follow, like I said, the overarching, okay, so they're here, this is how they got here. Wow, she must have been a good person. That's what my mind was jumping to was, wow, okay. And then the soulmate thing, where they said that they matched you up with the soulmate and stuff, like I kind of had an inkling that they were going to introduce another character right after that.
I didn't like that, personally. I did not like the soulmate thing. If they were going to do it, then not now, first of all. Second of all, I don't think they had to do it at all.
Yeah, like that's your paradise, your afterlife, eternity, everything. Why is that the number one priority? Like the first thing you're gonna,
because you know what,
sign your
being paired up with your soulmate and not knowing who they are is a nightmare. You know.
Well, I think there's that trust, right? Because when you go into the situation, like you're to trust that like everything happens, like everything that they're doing is accurate, right? Like you're already in the good place, so everything that's being done for you is tailored to you. Yeah, so why would you doubt that this person is anything less than your perfect match?
And if you're with somebody, so if you were married or in a relationship or whatever, that throws a wrench in the gears. I one time asked somebody, I'm not going to say who it was, after a few too many drinks, a few too many Lonely Girl margaritas, who had been married to a few different people. Well, then who are you married to? And they had passed away. I was like, well, when you go to heaven, quote unquote, then who are you married to? It opened up a can of worms that was not what I wanted to open up.
That's a heavy question.
I realized the second those words left my mouth, I was like, oh, what did I just do to myself? But I just was interested in that. Okay, well, in your good place. Like,
it is a good question.
The one, right? Because I find all this religion stuff very interesting. It was a very bad few hours after that.
Was there an answer?
Yeah, Joe got punched. That was the answer. That was the answer to the question. Was a fat lip.
Yeah, there was no definitive answer given, and no.
Wasn't it's okay, we're Mormons, like.
Yeah, luckily the Amish don't listen to our podcast, so they'll never know that I said that to them.
And on a high note, did any of you guys catch the sponsor of this video?
It was Happy Otters.
It was otters holding hands while they sleep.
On their back.
Yeah.
To be fair, that will cheer anybody up anytime.
It got me. I was like, oh, look at them.
Yeah, me too. I was like, oh. But to go back to your point though about the if I could just circle back for a second to the soulmate thing. You're up there alone. The other thing, too, that we haven't discussed yet is that you're alone. You don't have your partner. You don't have a friend. You know, that was the thing that more or less struck out with me. With the soulmate introduction, it's like, oh, okay, so I'm not going to be alone up here.
And I think
that's true.
That goes back to why Eleanor was comfortable, because they really do paint her as a loner. So she was like, all right, this is just a new place to do the same thing.
When your last moments on Earth were purchasing a bottle of Lonely Girl margarita mix for one, the thought that you now have a soulmate is probably pretty comforting for you.
Again, I feel like too much shade is getting thrown at this girl buying a bottle of margarita.
I'm with you, Joe.
Yeah, everyone's going hard on this. I don't get it.
It was called Lonely Girl margarita mix for one. It wasn't just called like El Fiesta margarita mix. It wasn't something like happy. It was like you were made to know that it was a sad moment in your life purchasing it.
That name coupled with her reaction to it they did that on purpose to, in
Yeah, they're
one
trying to
sentence,
make
give you
you-
a better idea of her.
I don't know what makes me think of this, but one time I bought a bottle of vodka because it was 50% the calories, and I was like, oh man, this is amazing. And I got out and I made it maybe halfway through the parking lot, and I looked at it, and it was 50% the calories because it was 50% the alcohol. So it was basically just water with one shot, like a bottle of water with one shot of alcohol. And I had to sadly like turn my tail and walk back to the liquor store and be like, I think I bought the wrong one.
I need a
Exchanged
second
it.
one.
Do they let you exchange liquor?
Yeah, I mean, I was 50 steps out of the parking lot. I came back in. I'm sure when I left, they were like, that guy just bought the half-calorie, half-alcohol vodka. What was he doing? So they let me return it. I'm sure they just made fun of me immediately after.
And from this, we find out, so Eleanor and Michael are walking through the park now, and she's like very curious about the bad place. And we find out some names of people that are currently in the bad place. So we find out how exclusive it really is. Like Mozart, Picasso, Elvis. He said basically every artist ever. Every president except for Lincoln. Florence Nightingale. So this is the Good Place is a very exclusive crew from what we're seeing.
Wait, I thought those people were in the bad place.
They were in that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
they're
Those were all
in the
people in the
bad
bad
Oh,
place.
right. Okay, yeah. I got confused.
Lincoln is the only president that made it up top. Which, like, I guess is fair.
And even he, I'm sure, has some skeletons in his closet.
Oh, for sure.
When he's not killing vampires,
Professional wrestler.
He invented the headlock, was it? I believe, or the
think
full
so.
Nelson. One
Maybe
of
it was
those.
the full Nelson.
Yeah,
You
he's
got
in
my vote.
the Wrestling Hall of Fame, like the professional Wrestling Hall of Fame.
He's already more charismatic than Arn Anderson, so.
Okay.
All right,
So,
time for you to leave, sir.
We
Currently,
so,
he is too. So
as we're finding out how exclusive it is, even Eleanor is kind of like, wow, that's like, like, how did I make it? And Michael's like, well, of course you made it, and you were a lawyer who got innocent people off death row, so like obviously you deserve it. So like, okay, that's now we know why she's there. Like that's a pretty commendable thing. Like I could see how
Yeah.
that got you some big points. And then from there we finally get to her house, which is this like brightly colored cottage next to the largest mansion you've ever seen in your life.
Full of clown
And-
pictures.
Because, yes,
Yeah.
which is full of clown pictures because she loves clowns, and we find out that every house is tailored to your dream home, right? Because like it doesn't mean that everyone would have the same exact house because you're in your good place, so everything is exactly as you want it.
Mhm.
So for
Is the art
Eleanor,
style
it's,
of her house, they refer to that as Icelandic primitive, I think.
yeah, something
Yes.
like that. So we see this is her dream house, right? The lawyer who got people off of death row wants this nice little brightly colored cottage filled with weird clown pictures. That's her eternity.
Now, does that bring up to anybody? Does anybody have what their good place house would be? Your ideal? What is your afterlife? This is where you're going to hang out forever. Is it like the house from House Party? Is it anything? Anybody have anything they would think of?
That's
the first thing I thought
that's the
of, like,
first thing that comes to mind. Like, man, if you had a
The
dream
house
house,
from
like the
House
house from House Party, which isn't even like an
No,
extravagant
you know
house.
the first thing I thought of. I would live in Tower 1 of World Trade Center all by myself. That's what my good place is. I'm asking you guys what you think your good place is.
I think I wanted a house. We talked. What was it? Episode 3. We did Home Improvement, and like all those man kitchen, the man's bathroom, all seemed like the coolest things in the world to me. So if
Oh,
I had
yeah.
those things in my house, and then like sprinkling a little bit of like Richie Rich. Remember, like you have a McDonald's in your house, but like sub that with like a Taco Bell. If you put like a Taco Bell in my house and a home theater and a decent pool and like the man's kitchen.
I want to live in the house from Blank Check.
This is actually weird because one of my biggest dreams is like it goes to like your like endless money dream.
You want to live in a
Is-
bouncy house.
I want to live in a bouncy house. No, I wanted to buy and build basically a cul-de-sac of houses, but each house is from a different sitcom. So like one house is like the full house, and like that's where you sleep or whatever. And then you can have any kind of, and then I could build the Cheers bar and like put people in it to work there, and then I could go across the street to the Cheers bar. And then but they're all identical to the sets. And that's where I would want to live.
I'm with Nick on this one. That rules. Can I live in your neighborhood?
Sure, you just
get
got to
the
pick a
Roseanne
house.
Yeah, you live with the Connors.
I'm totally fine with that.
Gordo, any thoughts? I don't think you chimed in on that one.
Gordo's never seen a sitcom until 5 weeks ago, so it's going to be hard for him to pick.
No, if I actually had to pick, I would pick the spaceship from Red Dwarf.
which I plan on doing on this show eventually.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I have Red Dwarf.
Yeah,
on
we
my
haven't
list,
got
too,
to
yeah.
that yet, but I would pick that. Just having the whole spaceship and floating around in space, I think that would be cool.
It's such a shitty place. Why would you want to live there?
Because it'd just be me. Who gives a shit? I can
Hey,
do
yeah,
whatever I want.
you're
in
gonna
there.
live next door in your good place. So
Yeah, I'm just floating around in space, man. Looking
also
for stuff.
what we saw in the house, which I thought was really cool, is there's like essentially like a DVR that plays every memory you ever had.
That's super creepy.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd like
Yeah,
that.
I don't want that.
Now, I wonder if is that a feature of the house or is that Michael's powers?
No, I think that's a feature of the good place
Each
itself.
individual house, you can watch
Okay.
your own memories. It's not like you watch everybody's memories; you watch just your own. So it's not creepy. It's like stuff that you encountered.
Yeah, but wouldn't that make you... But again, this goes back to that other question that this episode doesn't answer is, what does that do to you? Like,
Well,
is
it depends.
that like
are you only using it to watch like POV sex tapes of yourself? Like,
it'd be very short.
So that's where Jay went right away.
Yeah, I know.
To no one's surprise.
No, that's not where I went. I was thinking like, you see your wedding or you see, births,
Yeah, I mean, that
or
could
you
be
see
sad.
good...
No,
You know.
I want to circle back to this later, but like with that something like that, Eleanor would have to be really careful with those memories that she avoids mirrors, not to until we get to that, But
Yeah, I feel like watching that though, you'll end up in a very Clark Griswold in the attic in Christmas Vacation scenario where you're watching these old memories and it just clearly messes with you. And
what
then
was
you fall through
what was the memory
roof.
that he was showing her for the example? It was something with
was-
like kids overseas.
She was in the Ukraine, like helping like poor kids out or something.
Yeah, it was like
that.
a helping out underprivileged children.
Yeah, and he
Like
was
a
like,
Doctors
"Oh yeah,
Without
that's-"
Borders type of thing, but she wasn't a doctor.
Yeah, and he was like, "This got you a lot of points," and she's, and that's kind of where I thought something was kind of.
yeah,
there.
at this point, something's up. She's selling it with her face, faking
Yeah,
it
I
till you're
mean,
making
she
it. But
she wasn't being
she-
super obvious, but I think you could tell something was off at this point. Like, and these things don't even coincide, right? Like, she's a lawyer, and then she's also doing this on the side, like going and like helping out kids, like. And this is the first time we see an additional character like get introduced to the story that like actually has like a speaking role, other than we saw people like walking through the town. So her soulmate, Chidi, comes in.
Yeah, so Chidi comes in. I like this too because he's, I would say maybe younger than her. He's like a younger, good-looking.
I didn't get that. I thought they were the same age.
Yeah, I did too.
He
I
seems
didn't
younger
really
than me.
think it didn't flag my wasn't something I thought about. So I guess it wasn't so different that I
don't
took
think
note of it.
drastically, but like young dude looks like he's pretty muscular, like fairly like good-looking dude, whatever comes in, but they immediately also don't seem like they should get along. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, well, they sit down and they try to get to know each other because they're like, all right, well, we're soulmates. I guess we should talk. And Chidi was born in Nigeria, but like due to like work, he spent his entire life traveling the world. And then that's when Eleanor's like, well, I was born in Phoenix, and then I moved to Tempe for a little while, and then I went back to Phoenix. So you're kind of
Yeah.
like, these two are soulmates. Like he's like a world traveler from Nigeria, and she just like spent her whole life in the desert.
Yeah, and what I also like too is when she was like, "Oh, wait, you speak English," and he's like, "No, it just translates to you." So you start to get kind of more of the meta world and how that's set up. And he's like, I speak French, but it translates whatever I'm saying into a language you understand, and vice
Zishri
versa.
vie.
Yeah, Michel. Yeah, Mosey.
That J is not French. That's one of those things though that like that's a perfect example of like what would the afterlife, what should it be like, right? Anybody can speak to each other. You hear what's comfortable and easy to understand for you. Like, a little thing in the writing that you're like, oh,
It's
let's
the
make
clever
this
little
work.
things that they bring up that eliminates a million questions down the road.
Yeah, and again, I think that just like with the video, just like when he first explained her death, and with this, they do a great job writing these little like big questions that you would have with your like soulmate and what happens with family and so forth and so on. They do a great job of
Yeah.
simplistically writing it off, but it's enough to just go, oh, okay, yeah, well that makes sense.
They get out ahead of it quickly.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was Chidi's job? He was an ethics professor or an ethical
Ethics
like.
and moral philosopher.
Yeah, professor of
Yeah.
ethics and moral philosophy.
Yeah.
And it's like
Just
stuff we can
setting
get
up,
into and
like-
like not to get too deep into it, right? But like a lot of things we talk about, like watching your memories and stuff. Yeah, there's going to be elements of seeing loved ones that you don't get to see anymore, at least until they might show up down the road. And like, I guess no matter what your forever is, what your beliefs are, there's, those questions and issues could arise, right? Because like, obviously there's no perfect scenario where you leave this realm and go to the next and all your friends and family are there with you. So it's just kind of like, this is a good situation that you're in and everyone's generally happy and we set you up with someone that you're going to like. But I think during this conversation too is where we get a very big reveal. This is when Eleanor finally says to Chidi, I need to tell you something. You have to promise that you have my back no matter what. And she's like, I'm not supposed to be here. And so any suspicion you had up until this moment is confirmed. She's like, those are not my memories. That was not my job. I'm not the right person.
That was the moment that was what immediately like made me love the show right after, with the writing and everything like that. That moment was like, wow, okay.
She made it very clear somebody forked up.
Yeah, and then with the swearing that you can't swear, and so it was like bullshit, and like
that got me every time.
Yep.
Every time they call back to it throughout the episode, every time she attempts to swear and it's edited into a way that she says something a little more wholesome, every time it made me laugh.
My favorite one was when she says ashhole, which I just think is funnier than
but
asshole.
I meant ashhole.
Yeah. I'm not really saying
That's
ashhole.
I know. She tried to clarify as if she thought by trying to say it again it would work.
The funny thing too is how much from the point at which she tells Chidi the deal, she completely devolves because she was putting on an act for Michael, and I think that was part of like because we had discussed her excitement when she saw Chidi, and she was like, "Oh, okay, my soulmate." That was just part of her act, I think, because she's dying inside. She knows she's not supposed to be there, and now Michael's gone. It's just her and Chidi. He explains everything, or she explains everything, and now she's kind of just free to be her normal self, and she's already let go of that fake person she was for 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, you can't tell the guy in charge you're not supposed to be there because he
Right.
will take you out of there. So you at least have a confidant now that you think you can at least tell. Like, she doesn't necessarily believe that that's her soulmate because she knows that she's not the right person for that spot. So she probably acknowledges that part of it, but needs somebody that she can rely on and tell the truth to and try to make a plan with.
Have they gotten to the bad part yet, the bad place yet, and why they can't talk about it, or is that later
No,
on?
that's about to
later.
come up. That's
Okay,
coming up
okay.
almost immediately from where we're at now, though.
Okay.
Is this where they show where her job was when she worked in sales?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
With,
what we
with
see
Seth
next.
Myers.
So it's
Like
we
not
find out,
even is she not supposed to be there, but like she's like an awful person. Like she's not like
Yeah.
she's not an okay person. That
yeah, she's a salesman, and which is more like she's a telemarketer who sells old people fake medicine. That's her job. And like Chidi's like, oh my god, and like
So your job was to defraud the sick and elderly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess.
but she was proud. She's like, but I was top salesman. Like,
She
so
did
at
for
least I was
4
good at my
years.
job.
And
4
he's
years
like,
running.
that's somehow worse. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Also, Seth Morris, not Seth Myers.
Not Seth Myers.
Seth Morris
Yeah.
was her boss, who's amazing.
And so now they're at one of the many, many froyo places, and they're like, okay, so let's see how we can resolve this. And Chidi thinks maybe that this is a test. Like, Michael is testing you to see if you deserve to be here. Just tell him it's a mistake, and then he's going to know that it always was, and that's like your reward is you get to be here.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Like, if,
Not a bad
if it's a
theory.
test. No, it's not a bad theory at all. No.
And that's where you meet Janet, right? Because
Janet.
now they bring up
Yes.
how to test this. Let's find out about the afterlife, and you hear the audio clip of what's happening currently.
Right.
In
So to
the bad
explain
place.
Janet real quick, though, Janet is like if Siri was in human form. So Chidi just calls for Janet, and then boop, she just pops up, and she's there to answer any question you have about absolutely anything.
Except for the bad place.
But the clip she plays of the bad place is essentially just a modern version of that scene in Dirty Work, where because it's all just screaming and chainsaws. It's just
Yeah.
so funny.
I love how you can just hear faintly, why does the bear have two mouths? Oh my God, why does the bear have two mouths? Like,
Yeah.
that cracked me up.
So again, it's like the bad place isn't hell, as Michael tells him. There's no heaven and hell, but it kind of sounds like what we imagined hell to be.
Right.
And what I also liked is when Eleanor finds out that she can ask Janet anything, her first question is about like a dude that used to live near her to find out if he was actually gay or lying to her. It's like,
Yeah.
no, he wasn't gay. Oh, that's fine. I wasn't interested anyways. Yes, you were.
That sets a great precedent for how that character is going to be. Like, you're going to love that character on the show because of that sort of deadpan total
Exactly.
truth.
Yeah, it's very
Delivery.
matter of fact, and like she has like a bubbly personality, so I don't want to say she's like completely deadpan because she has personality in what she says, but there's no weight behind anything she tells you. It's all just she's meant to sound upbeat, and she will deliver any good or bad news in that same upbeat tone. So Chidi's torn because he's not a dishonest guy. he's a teacher of ethics and morals, but he wants to help her still, but he doesn't want to like be in this eternal lie. He's very torn.
There's also where you get like another hint that maybe things aren't what they seem, because he's like, how do I have a stomach ache in
Right. That was another
paradise?
like giant flag. And it's like one of these things that as
Yeah.
the episode
Yeah.
builds up, like as he calls attention to it, he's like, why do I have a stomach ache in, this perfect utopia as he called it? And that's when like they say something about like maybe we should say something to Michael, because he wants to know why he has a stomach ache. And that's when Michael's like, tell Michael what? And he shows up with the neighbors that live in this giant mansion, which is Tahini and Janyu. Is that what
John
his
It's
name
Yu.
was?
Tahani and Jean Yu.
Yeah, Jian Yu.
Yeah. And Tahani is very like condescending as she's telling Eleanor how much she loves her tiny house.
She's posh.
Yes.
She's ranting on about how much she loves it and how it's so small and adorable, but like you can tell she thinks it's like terrible and disgusting.
Yeah.
And then she
Yeah, like
booped
a
her on the
dog.
nose, and she's like, "Did you just boop me?"
Yeah.
Gotta appreciate a good booping.
Yeah, and we find out John Yu he's a monk who made a vow of silence. So he's a non-speaker. He's with this debutante type. She's
I don't
very
know
like
much about monking, being a monk, Tony Shalhoub life. But if you make a vow of silence, is that only for the earth? Like, you think if you made a vow of silence as a monk that you were like, hey, you're in the good place, you'd be like, fuck, holy
Yeah.
shit, I could say stuff again.
you did it. You were silent your whole life. Now you get to talk. We're
Yeah.
here.
Right.
Like
That shouldn't
Yeah.
carry over to the afterlife.
I think that I mean, obviously events down the line also give, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but they kind of give foreshadowing to something like that it's not what it appears to be, because clearly these two also don't look like they're soulmates either.
it seems like a weird pairing for sure.
Yeah.
And they are throwing a party. So they're inviting them to a party that they're hosting that night, which is the next scene that we get into. And Chidi's like, he's talking to Eleanor. He's like, just tell me anything good you've ever done in your life to make me feel better about helping you. It's like, give me just a shred of something so I know that I'm helping someone who's not completely evil. And she has nothing. She got back to what that cut into was her thinking about the day before she died. And I know for a fact that this scene made Gordo and Nick both lose it, because the guy
It
goes,
did.
do you have a second to help out the environment? And she goes, do you have a second to eat my farts? And then accuse him of
Love
being
it.
horny for the environment.
That was the line that got me. If you're so horny for the
too.
environment, you pick it up.
Gotta love a good fart joke thrown in there. I won't
Yeah,
ever
You
not
don't.
laugh at
You don't have to
farts.
love one, but you guys really do.
Are you gonna shame me for liking fart jokes, Joe?
No shame, especially when it's a cute girl saying it.
Fucking 9/11 weirdo making fun of my fart jokes.
Nick's a fart truther.
George Bush made me fart.
I'm not the only imperfect person here. She's like, not everyone here is absolutely perfect. And then we cut to them talking to multiple like other people at the party who are all the most extreme cases of perfect people like you've ever encountered in your life.
The one that killed me was, I forget what the body part was like, you can't live with 2 livers or whatever.
Oh, it's like 2 kidneys.
Kidneys.
Like, oh, you can't give him both kidneys because then you'll die.
It's like, but he's a nice person. I met him 5 minutes ago. That's such an extreme joke that just fucking destroyed me. I laughed so hard at that. Just so stupidly absurd. I love that humor.
I love that she says, like, I'm not the only perfect one. There's a couple fatties here. Like,
Did you say chunkers or chunksters?
Yeah.
I forget what she
Chunkers, something
said.
like
Yeah.
that.
She hasn't fully grasped like how she doesn't even understand that part of her is super shitty, right? Like she still says these things that she doesn't realize are not things you should be saying.
Yeah, it doesn't click with her. She's not self-aware in that way. I think that happens with everybody though, right? Like none of us are perfect people, but it's very difficult to acknowledge when you're at fault. And maybe I'm the prime example, right? Because I find myself in arguments with people night and day all the time, and I just think it's the world. But then there's a point we have to go, but I'm arguing with everybody at all points of the day. It's probably a little bit me. So she probably just thinks the whole world is just dumb, and she's in a world by herself. They just aren't caught up to her yet. And so Eleanor walks off. She's about to go to the bar because now she's frustrated because everybody's so perfect. And Michael tells her Michael has an announcement for the party. This is where we find out that this is the very first neighborhood that Michael got to design completely on his own. So everyone applauds that. Eleanor steals some shrimp and tells Chidi how much she doesn't like tahini. and just starts making fun of her, which I thought was pretty
Tahani.
good. Tahani? Yeah, Tahani.
Tahini is a food product made out of sesame seeds. Tahani is
You can name your kids whatever you want, by the way. Her name might be Tahani, but that doesn't mean that you can't name your kid Tahini.
You can also name your
In
kid
this
Sesame.
case, she didn't, but yeah.
I might do.
Sesame. Sesame Sutton.
It's a great name.
So she starts making fun of her, and she's using like the accent. And actually, I thought this was a good call too, because while she's getting mad, she's like, "And how does she have a British accent? You're supposed to be able to hear everybody in there, like in your language. Why do I hear an accent? She's definitely faking it." I was like, "That's kind of a good pickup
Yeah.
for her to acknowledge that."
Yeah, I
Also,
did too.
probably a good workaround because in real life she has that accent, and they're like, "How do we explain this on the show? If everyone's supposed to hear everything in their native tongue, like how does this girl have an accent?"
Yeah, I thought it was a
Because she
great
wants
plot.
Yeah, it was a nice little way to maybe acknowledge that and not have you question it in a situation like this where we're analyzing a show scene for scene to be like, wait, why do we have that accent? Like something's wrong.
Do you think she tried to not have an accent in like the original pilot? Like
They're
when
like,
they're
yeah,
filming,
try to
and
give
they're
us a
like, "You know what?
normal,
Nope.
yeah, try to
She's
give us
terrible."
an American accent. No, we've
I like
already
how you said
established in
normal
past
first
episodes.
there. Try to give us a normal voice. You know, an American normal voice.
Well, here in America, yeah, try to give us an American
You know
accent.
what I meant.
We've established in the past though that British people are fantastic at doing accents. So,
Yeah, British people and Australians, the best at accents.
and what does Eleanor also refer to as like a cartoon giraffe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Yes.
comes up later.
Yeah, and then
Yeah, so that's when she sort of loses it, right? This is when she talks about how there should be a medium place, which I love. A medium place like Cincinnati.
Yeah.
yeah.
But if we're going back to the sort of, broader conversation of a good place and a bad place, it does make sense there should be a medium place, right?
No, it does.
Yeah,
It
it makes
does.
perfect sense.
Einstein goes one place, Hitler goes one place, we go another, right? It just seems to make sense that we wouldn't be in either category of the others,
Yeah, because when you watch The Good Place, like I'm not of the thought that like, yeah, I deserve to be there. Like I didn't rack up enough points for this. But like, what do my tickets get me? You know what I mean? Like we're redeeming it, right? Like you're at the token booth at Dave and Buster's. Like so, I don't get the good place, but do I get something? Like yeah, you get this kazoo and some Jolly Ranchers.
As long as they're cherry Jolly Ranchers, I love a kazoo, I'm all in.
I don't. Wait, no. Quick tangent. Cherry's your favorite Jolly Rancher?
Absolute favorite, the only one I'll eat.
Watermelon for me.
Yeah, watermelon for me too.
No,
Well, that's
green.
good to know. What about you?
Green apple.
Nobody likes green apple. You're the
Well, I
worst.
buy the bags of them and I only eat the cherries, so next time I buy a bag,
You can
I'll
just
bring
mail
over
me
the
all the
leaves
green
for you
apple
guys.
ones. Yeah.
Also,
No, I
if
thought the
anybody
only one
wants
that-
50,000
I'm gonna send you the shitty
green-
grape ones.
I've never
gonna say, I
put a
thought
Jolly
grape-
Rancher in my mouth and been like, ew, though. Like, they're all like,
No, but everyone has a
Grape's
preference.
not good. Grape is not good.
It's not bad. If you like,
No, I
we're in a
dislike
situation where
grape
there's a
at
grape one.
everything. Makes me think of Dimetap.
I love Dimetap. When I was a kid, that was the best.
Jay, you honestly like Dimetap as a kid? That's speaks
yeah, that was like
volumes.
that was
Speaks
the only
volumes.
good part about being sick was you got to have Dimetap.
Okay, I don't know
You
what that's
got
about.
to.
Yeah, eggplant pizza. Here we are. Like, this is
Oh,
where you
Lord.
start. This is where you end. This
I'm
is
gonna go
why.
watch Caveman and drink my Dimetap.
I would be drinking a Moxie. I wouldn't be drinking Dimetap. I'm an adult who's not sick right now.
Oh, good lord.
Yeah, that's right.
We
You
should-
do drink Moxie.
And
Yeah.
if Moxie would like to sponsor us,
Eleanor's just getting like blasted, drunk in the good place. Too.
yeah. And she said, and this is another thing when it comes down to like not being like aware of herself. Like what she'd said right after all that was like, "I'm gonna go upstairs and steal gold stuff." It's like for what?
yeah, money has no value
What
there.
It
are you
just
gonna
makes
do
her
with it?
feel better.
There's no
Yeah.
pawn shop in the good place you can go get rid of the, gold candlesticks or whatever.
Yeah, you're gonna steal a gold candlestick and just sneak it in your drawer and hope that Michael never finds it. Like what's the point of that? But that's just
Unless
how
he's
her
trying
brain
to play
works.
Find the Dildo and he finds the candlestick by accident.
I'm sorry.
The game we've played Find the Dildo before.
Nope. Okay, so we're gonna
We're
move
not
on.
going into that, Joe.
We're gonna move on. So now we're gonna cut. So now we're gonna cut to back home, where she hates her house, but she snuck a bunch of shrimp in her bra to take home with her, and she's ranting on about how she doesn't like the house, that she's expelling all this shrimp from her bra, which was like, again, it's the afterlife. You could have just
Why
taken all
aren't
the
there
shrimp you wanted,
stairs?
right?
Also, to be fair, why aren't there stairs?
That's
Because
a
it's not her
single-level
house. Like the real person who's supposed to be there is supposed to, doesn't want the stairs.
Also, is this where she says, "Hello, creepy house I hate. Hello, clown paintings"?
Yeah.
Hello, million clown paintings.
And like, I think Chidi seems pretty disappointed at this point because he knows like his eternity is now like tainted forever.
Yeah, no, he has to think his eternity is tied
To
forever
dealing
to
with
this-
her, yeah.
dealing with her and trying to make her feel better, and
Because
she's
like
already a
he's
nightmare,
like
and he's
because
sick.
it's like an ethics thing, right? Like it's also embedded in him to help. but
Yeah.
now he has to help someone who's going to ruin his eternity. And
But
then
that led into my favorite joke though. After he puts her to bed and he shuts the thing, and there's the giant clown picture on the door,
Yeah.
and he goes, "Oh, that's terrifying."
Is that
Like,
Palaccio, the sad clown, I
it's
believe?
just his reaction. It's my favorite Chidi line throughout the whole show. Like, that's terrifying.
Yeah, and it plays like the clown music too as it closes.
And Eleanor then, after that scene, it kind of cuts a little bit further into the night where Eleanor wakes up to like the sound of lightning, where you go like, lightning in the good place? And she looks outside, everything is in absolute chaos. And it looks like some crazy storm is rolling through in an area that should never get anything but imperfect weather. So something's wrong, right? There's some sort of a glitch going on. And then you see everybody's wearing the same like blue and yellow zigzag print, but Eleanor, which she acknowledges when she gets out there and she starts talking to Chidi.
Yes, you see what giant flying shrimp. You see the giraffe they mentioned. You see,
Giant ladybug.
yep, giant ladybug.
I'm trying to remember what was
A
the
giant
ladybug.
frog.
What was the ladybug a callback to? Because everything else was tied to her throat.
I don't know that one.
I don't
I
think
know
that was
the
tied back to anything. I think it was just, or called back rather. I think that was just a very creepy thing to have
Okay,
happen.
because yeah, everything else just about, like we said, the giraffe, the shrimp, all that stuff was very specifically tied into things she was doing from right before.
What about the way that people were dressed in those zigzag? Was that a callback to anything? Because I didn't see. I
Not
didn't-
specifically. I think it was just to make it abundantly clear that everyone was kind of in the same situation, but for some reason she didn't have that outfit, so they needed something very loud to be like, this is
That was
abnormal.
well done too, because I noticed it right away. I'm
Also,
like,
back to
what
the-
are they wearing? Like,
Back to the ladybug. Michael says that every blade of grass and every ladybug is designed specifically
says
for
ladybug.
them. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
hey,
good call,
work,
Nick.
bud. Good work.
And
Mm.
we also had Ariana Grande playing, because I think she mentioned Ariana Grande like right before in her rant.
Yeah, because she can't say Chidi's name.
Chidi Ariana
Oh, yeah.
Grande.
So everything's very tied in specifically to everything Eleanor has encountered since entering the good place.
So this right here, this is my first real issue with the episode. This is where I think the logical stopping point should have been. She looks outside, everything is going crazy, and she's like, oh, what's happening? And then you cut, and then you think, oh, I want to see the next episode because that's like a fun cliffhanger or something weird
Oh,
has
that
happened.
makes sense, yeah.
And then they give it like 2 or 3 more minutes that just seem unnecessary after that, where they like just keep hammering home the thing you already knew, where it's like, well, you're wearing the pajamas, well, this and that. I think if they just ended it, if I had one real gripe with this episode, it was that that's where I think it should have ended.
No, it still ended on a cliffhanger, though. You still got your sequel bait.
Yeah,
No,
you
but I
still
think
got it.
They did, but I definitely see Joe's point, because to be honest, yeah, after what we just talked about, that's all that really happened was just a little more conversation. The only other really significant thing that happened was Eleanor acknowledging like, hey, maybe I'm not perfect. Chidi, can you please teach me ethics? Like, that was the only real thing.
Yeah, which I think could have been totally fine for the first scene of
They
the
could have picked
next
up on the
episode.
second episode and then
Yeah.
started right there with her acknowledging that she needs to change because this is her fault. Yeah.
Especially if you did it a way where they've done shows a lot where you'll do the season premiere where you do the pilot and episode 1 sort of back to back, where there's not even really a commercial break. It sort of cuts for a second and then it goes right back in, and it's, hey, Chidi, teach me how to be better. I think when you pull them apart later, it makes more sense to have that episode just end on like, oh, giant ladybugs, it's terrifying.
No, I disagree. I think this was better because now, like, that would have been like a what the fuck moment, but instead she went out and they established that her being there is not only like against the rules, but now it's ruining things for everyone else and slowly destroying this utopia.
Right, yeah.
So it further builds it up, and it just ends there, leading to like, what's she gonna do next episode? Does she, do
Yeah,
the right
I mean,
thing?
I guess
Which,
it's
she
a toss up.
won't. Like,
I can see it going either way. I
I see
kind of
both
side
points
with
for sure.
I think I side with Joe a little bit because I never thought about it, but I did think that it ended on kind of a weird note with like just Michael trying to knock on the door and Chidi the show ends on Chidi having to make a decision more than it did about like Eleanor. So I do think that maybe if it was cut a little bit different and it was more like an Eleanor discovery to end the episode may have been the better route, but
No, because the ending of the episode isn't so much Michael trying to get in, it's him saying, everybody outside, we have an emergency meeting. That's the cliffhanger, and then it ends. So, I mean, you already have the setup right there. Or that's when Michael says it, then she says to Chidi, can you teach me ethics? That's where it ends. That's
yeah,
it.
that's set up the actual premise of the
Yeah.
show. Like,
Yeah, that set it up.
you end on that.
Yep, and that's where it ended.
Well,
I
then,
enjoyed
yeah.
that.
Agree to
So-
disagree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's splitting
How
hairs, and
dare
at the end
you.
of the day,
Yeah.
the episode's made. So so that's the whole episode. So we've covered it all. Let's just get right to it, and let's go around and make our final determination if this is a show that we would greenlight or cancel based on just this first episode. Gordo, I'm going to start with you.
Greenlight. This is this show was the hardest to turn off episode 2. I didn't watch it, but this show itself left me on such a cliffhanger. When we're done recording, I'm going to go back and watch episode 2 just because I'm that curious as to what happened and see the rest of the setup. I don't know what happens in the rest of the show because I said I'd never watched it, but I want to see episode 2, and that's good enough for me. That's good enough for a green light for me.
Nick.
Green light. I love I like this big, mysterious, epic world that they built. There's already an enticing reason to keep watching as far as storyline goes. I want to see what the deal is. Is she going to stay? Are they going to send her to the bad place? The characters that they've already introduced, which in the grand scheme haven't been that many, 3 or 4 if you count Janet, and they're all funny. Like, I just want to keep seeing it happen. So yeah, green light, 100%.
Ferg.
I fucking love this show. All right. Green light, 100%. I watch a lot of like dark shows and stuff. The second I watch this, like, it's for a change, something wholesome, even though it's like there's something sinister behind it. But every second I'm watching this show, I'm feeling good. And I don't know. I enjoyed it. They get you with the sequel bait. So it's kind of hard to cancel a show that leaves you on a cliffhanger. So, green light, 100%.
Joe.
I was torn. This is one of the hardest ones we've done to sort of distance yourself from the other episodes of it. I don't necessarily
Agreed.
think this is the greatest pilot. Coming back to it, watching it again, I think I had a lot of questions and a lot of weird things that obviously get figured out. But talking about it with a bunch of people, and then with one person who's never seen it, and to what Gordo said about how badly he wanted to watch the next one, I was still there, where I was like, I know this will get really, really enjoyable. So I'd say green light, just because it's hard to say no. There's too much good to override the stuff that bothers me.
Yeah, and for me, I'm just going to round it out with everyone else, and I'm going to give it a green light as well. And I think what it comes down to is, when I did watch this whole series already pretty recently, for whatever reason, it didn't catch my eye when it first came out. I don't know why it escaped me. And then I just had this trust in, like, it being a Michael Sher show. So I'm like, I'm probably going to like it. I've liked everything else he's done, so why wouldn't I like this? And I did find when I watched it from episode 1, I couldn't turn it off in my initial watching of it. Now going back again, watched episode 1, jokes still landed with me. I still found them funny. I still wanted to continue watching right after. I think it's a great cast. It's a really light, fun energy. And I just think everything really hit. Are there things about it that they could have done a little different? Sure. Are there little holes here and there? Sure. And when you're tackling like an afterlife type topic, that's going to happen. It's almost unavoidable. But overall, I think the show is great. So that's a 5 for 5 from us. That's a perfect score. Green light. Congratulations to The Good Place. You're going to live on for episode 2. That's all we have for this episode, guys. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We want to continue to ask you guys, when you have a chance, if you can subscribe, rate, review, do everything. Follow us on all our social medias. You can find that all at S1E1pod.com. S1E1pod is the name on most of our social media accounts. Look us up. Spread the word. Let people know. Thank you so much, and we will catch you next week.
Froyo.
Asshole.